Hi, I'm Justin Keay, Field Specialist in Horticulture with MU Extension. Today we're going to talk about blossom end rot and calcium disorders in vegetable crops. The most common calcium disorders we see are blossom end rot in pepper, tomato, and eggplant, but we can also see issues with leaf tip burn in lettuce, spinach, and cabbage. A number of other vegetable crops can also develop different calcium disorders. Calcium management starts with soil testing to ensure that pH is at adequate levels. In low pH soils, calcium availability is significantly reduced. As most Missouri soils are acidic, soil testing and modifying the pH with lime is necessary to add calcium to the soil and ensure optimal availability. However, even when calcium is at optimal levels, moisture management is key. Calcium moves through the xylem of the plant by a process of ion exchange and transpiration flow, making it move more slowly than many nutrients. This is because many nutrients can move through the plant by transpiration flow alone. It's important to note that calcium is not mobile in the plant. Unlike nutrients like nitrogen, which are able to be moved from one plant structure to another, calcium cannot. Calcium and water move toward plant parts with high transpiration rates, like leaves that lose a lot of moisture to the atmosphere and the environment, and they don't move as readily to plant parts with low transpiration rates, such as fruits. All of this leads to deficiencies of calcium in fruiting structures that causes characteristic malformation of plant tissues like blossom end rot. Some best practices for managing calcium disorders is to ensure an adequate soil pH through soil testing and appropriate lime additions. We also want to avoid root damage from deep cultivation. Anything that damages the roots is going to affect the rate at which the plant can absorb moisture from the soil. We also want to avoid bone dry or waterlogged soils by managing irrigation appropriately. It's important to note that the longer and larger fruits are more susceptible to calcium disorders, so you might want to consider selecting different varieties if this is an issue you currently are dealing with. Soluble calcium applied through fertigation in the form of calcium nitrate can offer benefits, but only if irrigation continues to be effectively managed. Foliar calcium applications to fruit structures have shown minimal effectiveness. We want to maintain soil moisture throughout fruit development and harvest using adequate and even irrigation events. One tool that can help ensure this is the use of tensiometer. Tensiometer, pictured on the right, is basically a vacuum probe capable of measuring soil moisture. These can be installed at a single 6-inch depth, or you can use a double system of a 6 and 12-inch depth to monitor soil moisture both at the upper and lower reaches of the root zone. Tensiometers can also help automate an irrigation system as they can be paired to solenoid valves. Unfortunately, these tools don't perform in soils that are primarily of clay origin due to the high moisture tension in these types of soils. However, there are simple touch and feel methods that you can use to estimate soil moisture. These images are from a USDA publication on estimating soil moisture by feel and appearance. It's generally recommended to take samples at 6 and 18-inch depths using a shovel, probe, or auger. This way you can monitor the moisture levels in the soil in the upper reaches and lower reaches of the root zone. And this test works in any soil type across Missouri. We also have a helpful publication on irrigation and fertigation in high tunnel tomatoes, as many growers are now using these structures to produce tomatoes for market. You can see highlighted in yellow, we have drip tape with a gallon per hour of 24 and gallon per minute of 0.4. In this graph, we can see that tomatoes in a high tunnel need to be irrigated at 7 hours per week with 300 tomatoes, 9 hours per week with 400 tomatoes, and 12 hours per week with 500 tomatoes. The graph on the right shows the ounces per day needed for tomatoes throughout the production cycle from planting to harvest. Soil moisture management is critical beginning at the early stages of fruit development and throughout harvest. You can calculate the hours of irrigation required based on the flow rate of the drip tape used. You can also evaluate soil moisture by feel or mechanical means, and it's also important to scout for drip line damage from rodents such as mice or voles throughout the production cycle to ensure that plants all along the drip tape row are receiving adequate moisture. You can check out the resources here. They'll be listed in the YouTube video description for more information.